This is the Next Bite of Life podcast, the place to be to hear personal stories from expats, digital nomads, and everybody else taking their next bite of life. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Next Bite of Life podcast. I'm your host, Kem Casanelli. Today I am speaking with Cheryl. Her blog is called The Lifestyle Digs, and thelifestyledigs.com is the actual website. She's here today to talk about life during COVID-19 in Canada, and we're just going to chat about pretty much everything. Welcome to the show, Cheryl.
Well, hi, Kim. Thanks for having me today. It's my full name's Cheryl Rhodes, and yes, my blog is thelifestyledigs.com.
It's a great blog, and I always make sure to read your latest blog posts because it's chock full of information about everything.
Uh-uh.
Now, you write about obviously lifestyle, so it includes a little bit of financial information, baking, horses, so
Yeah.
we'll go through all of that maybe,
Okay.
and tell me, like, how long have you been blogging?
Well, for about 10 years, I had other blog too. I had a blog called Life in Cloverdale, and then I had a second blog called Travel Tales. So those were just on, blog. Yeah, I think that's Blogger, the one, the free blog that ends in
Yeah.
blogspot.com.
Uh-huh.
And so that was where I just blogged about what was happening in Cloverdale on one blog, and mostly did a lot of cruising or maybe travel to Las Vegas, and I would write about that on the other one. But I'm trying to kind of get that travel blog and gradually get the little posts over onto the lifestyle digs, so I can just shut that one down for good.
Makes
So
sense.
yeah.
Now, so basically, when did you decide, like, what made you decide that you wanted to be a blogger, really? Like, what inspired you to become a blogger?
Well, just another outlet to write about just what's going on around Cloverdale, which is kind of the the town itself. There's a rodeo here in May, but not this year, and so it's got a lot of history in this little area. It's a farming community, and so there's little things that go on. There's a big flea market here every Sunday, and markets in the summertime. So and there used to be a blueberry festival in December. They have the Santa Claus Christmas parade. So I thought people might like to read about what just like life is like in a smaller town, but really there's been a lot of subdivisions, condominiums, townhouses, everything. It's really growing up a lot around here. And,
Mm.
it's just kind of a different place to write because I was also writing for magazines and stuff at the time. But then I just kind of got tired of pitching and querying. And I thought, I just want to write about, kind of get away from writing now because it's just too tough to make a living at it. But I still
Yes,
want to write. So that was why I started the Lifestyle Digs in the beginning of 2017, just to kind of, write about what's going on in my life. And, um, I think there's probably a lot of women in my situation. They're older women. They're single. They maybe don't. Women typically don't have great paying jobs. So just trying to talk about what I'm going through, and maybe some of the stuff I can advise. Help other women maybe put aside a little bit of money to either
yeah.
travel or further retirement. In Canada, ageism is huge. It's really hard to find a job in Canada if you're a woman over the age of 40. So that's
Yes,
another real big issue.
I see the same thing happening in the US. I mean, anybody over 40. I have a brother-in-law who's been like looking for a job for years. I mean, this guy he's in the oil and gas industry. He's worked for the big corporations. And it's like he goes in for interviews and they see the date of birth and it's like nothing. You can't even get in the front door. It's just insane. It's like they expect you to just die after a certain age or something.
Yeah. Well, they can't ask you your birth date, in an interview, not until after they've hired you, of course. But, I can write a pretty good resume. I must have gone in at least 30 job interviews last year. And,
Hmm.
you walk in the door and they see an older person, and that's kind of that's the end of it.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
but the fact I
Wow.
was getting a lot of interviews tells you something. And right now there's hardly any job openings anywhere,
Yeah.
and and there was a guy from Spud. So it used to be a produce delivery service, but they've expanded. They have a warehouse and they have all kinds of groceries that they deliver now. And he said he had 10,000 job applications just
Wow.
in late March, early April. I can't quite remember. He was on TV about a month ago. So
Can
that,
you imagine? I mean, a whole lot of people are hurting right now. I know, like
yeah,
in your blog, one of the things you have there, and I remember reading it said, suddenly single. And
yeah,
what
yeah. Oh, no,
would
nobody
you
wants
like
to
to
go
talk
through.
about that?
Well, nobody wants to go through a great divorce, when they're older. My ex and I were together for 20 years, and then, all of a sudden, you know, you go through the whole divorce process and family court, and the house sells, and then the people that we bought the house, I was able to rent it back for a while trying to find another place,
Uh-huh.
and and I hated living there. You know, I never really liked the house to begin with, but I really hated living there. And now my ex is not having any support.
Mm.
He's hiding. He's hiding in
Yeah.
another country, and
Uh-huh.
I have 3 horses and 2 dogs to support, and I'm not
Wow.
working. I have no income, so I'm off my savings. So it was pretty tough. And fortunately, I'm lucky where I'm living now, and unfortunately, a couple of the horses did pass away over the last 3 years. So I'm
Mm.
down to 1 horse now through default.
And it's a beautiful horse too.
Yeah, yeah,
I
he's
know that's one of your passions,
yeah,
riding horses.
yeah. The horses keep me sane.
Yeah.
That's about the only thing.
And you get to ride daily?
Just about. I'm not going to ride today. It's gonna get up to about 90 today, so I'm just
Wow.
not gonna. Yes, I'm just not gonna ride him. But yeah, if it's a nice day that it's not really hot and humid, and it's not raining, I will ride him. He can be a little tough to ride at times. He he's just a bit mischievous, or he just has other ideas, or what I want to do. Usually he's
And he
pretty
has a mind of
good
his
on
own.
that. Yeah. So he's never been my favorite horse to ride, and because I just don't trust him completely.
Yeah.
But yeah, but it still gives me something to do every day. I can go out to the farm and see him, and my dogs can come out to the farm too. The owner's quite no problem
Yeah.
with that.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's good. Now,
yeah.
for those of us who don't know where Cloverdale is, it's in Canada, right? Is it in Vancouver or outside of Vancouver or
It's about 30 miles outside of Vancouver.
okay.
Cloverdale is a community in the city of Surrey. So Surrey's one of the large suburbs of Vancouver. And Surrey also borders along Washington.
Okay.
So if we cross the border at Surrey, we'd be crossing into Blaine, Washington, which is in the northwest corner of Washington. And
Oh.
there's about couple miles from each other. One is well, the both border crossings will take cars, regular car
Yeah.
traffic, but one crossing is commercial, so that's where all the big semi trucks would cross at that one particular border. So
Okay.
but there's also 2 other border crossings that are within about a 45-minute drive from here as well.
Oh
So
wow.
so
I
pretty
know
busy.
Vancouver is a gorgeous city. I've only been to Vancouver as far as Canada, and I just absolutely loved it. I remember having my 30th birthday there, and
Wow.
it was a wild weekend with my
Yeah.
with my girlfriends, and we visited Whistler, and that was fun.
Well, they've interviewed people at Whistler in the past. They're from San Francisco. I remember a group of girls from San Francisco, and they said it was cheaper to fly to Vancouver and go to Whistler and ski than it was to go to Vail. So
Oh wow!
that was, the dollar exchange. Right now it's
Yeah, I
like
was just
70
about to
70
say, yeah.
cents. So yeah,
Wow.
Yeah, and Vancouver's got the coastal mountain range, and then the Cascades are fairly close. There's we can go an hour from here and be in the Cascade Mountain Range, and but yeah, the coastal mountain range. So you could be skiing in Vancouver off of Grouse Mountain or Cypress, and you could also see the water at the same time. So
Nice.
yeah,
Very nice. No,
yeah.
I thought it was just a gorgeous place, and I thought, oh, I wouldn't mind living here, but of course, all things considered, it wasn't practical.
Yeah.
Now, I know you have a love for travel, and that's been part of your DNA, really. And I know that you spent some time in Spain, actually.
Yeah, woohoo.
Tell us
I
about that.
Oh, well, when I went to University of Victoria for 2 years and I was studying Spanish. I was planning to major in Spanish, and I after 2 years I decided to take some time off and work, and I wanted to go live in Spain, and so I was trying to get a job as an au pair, which I eventually did and I was in Madrid, and I was with one family, and it didn't work out with them. Well, it didn't work out with the second family either. But the first family had a summer house out in Sigüenza,
Okay.
and so we went out there, and they had a little boy and a little girl, and they were a nice family. I think they were fairly well off, and but they needed somebody who could really speak better Spanish than me.
I
So,
see.
you know, it wasn't anything personal. They
Yeah.
because they were going to leave. The idea was for me to stay with the kids alone in Seguencia while they were going to go back and work in Madrid. But just my knowledge of Spanish and my
Hmm.
inability really be comfortable with two kids with neither parent on the scene for a week was
Yeah.
just not going to work out. And then the other
Doesn't
family I
sound
went,
fun.
yeah, the other family was in Madrid, and they were not very well off at all. I was surprised that they could even want somebody living with them, but the father worked as I don't know, some company that he was the guy that was in the driveway and lifted the gate up for cars
Ah.
to come in and
Oh,
out,
wow.
and the mother worked in a laundry room at a hospital, I think,
Hmm.
and so that there would be times throughout the day where neither parent would be home, so that was why they needed somebody there while they were at work.
I
But
see.
it was a really tiny place. It was a small apartment. I had my own room, but it was three tiny bedrooms, a tiny living room, and a tiny kitchen. And then they got a German Shepherd puppy,
Oh my God.
and it was just crazy. It was not really certain why they got it, but it was there were two German shepherds that were guard dogs where the father
Oh
worked,
my God.
and the female had puppies. So I don't know what the situation was, whether the boss or whatever said, "I'm just going to kill those puppies. We don't want puppies," or what.
Um,
But he took a puppy home to save it,
yeah.
which was good. But the puppy really should have been with the mother for a while. So we have this day old puppy that
Oh
they're
my
bottle
God.
feeding it milk. They knew nothing about animals. I knew a little bit, obviously, but the puppy survived, and but I'm thinking, boy, I think the parents knew it was going to be how big it was going to be, but the little one of the daughters was scared of big dogs. She liked the puppy, but she was
Wow.
she was scared of a big
Scared.
dog. One day we did come across a German Shepherd while we were out walking in the park, and she was terrified. And I says, "Look, that's your dog in a few
That's
months."
what you I'm sure that really alarmed her quite a bit, right?
Yeah, and the parents were just a little strange. They weren't your typical Spanish family. You go to the park and all Spanish people, they all get together and they're all hanging out, and
Uh-huh.
the parents never went out. The father would come home from work, he'd go into his bedroom, shut the door, and he'd do crossword puzzles. So he would totally
Mm.
ignore the girls.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the mother was more involved, but they were just very very strange. The girls would never have gotten outside if it wasn't me taking them out to the park. And
I guess that's
when I
why
had
they needed an au pair, right?
yeah, and then when I had day off and I go into town, and the girls would just be begging me to take them with them because they wanted to do something.
Yeah. How long did
Yeah.
that last?
I was there for
That
about 3 months, and then I just said, I can't put up with this anymore. And they wanted me to do work than an au pair should have done. They really needed a maid,
Yeah, they
and
did.
that wasn't me. And yeah, then I went down to Troy Molinos for a couple of weeks. So yeah, I enjoyed my time in Spain.
So at least you have some fun memories, right?
Yeah, I do. I have better memories than that tiny apartment, but I'll never forget that little apartment.
So now tell me, I know you had mentioned the border between Washington and Cloverdale. Now, before you lost your job, you were working as a truck driver, right? Like a
Yeah,
semi truck driver, right?
no, no, not semi, pickup trucks.
Oh,
Like a
pickup truck.
like a Ford F-250 or 150 or something like that, a Chevrolet Silverado.
Oh,
So the company I'm working for, and the drivers are all contract positions. So
okay.
it's pretty good money. It's $20 an hour, and most of the drivers are semi-retired.
Hmm.
So the company buys used pickup trucks from Alberta. Who would know that there's such a big market from Albertan
Right.
pickup trucks? They have them shipped to British Columbia. They come into their lot here in Surrey, and then they would maybe the truck needs some kind of repairs, or there might have been a recall for something. They get the trucks. To a company that changes the speedometer over from kilometers an hour to miles per hour,
Yeah.
and at that point, the truck can be imported into Washington. So they hire drivers to drive the truck from Surrey down into Ferndale, Washington, which is about 15 miles south.
Hmm.
And so basically, we just sit in the border lineup. We go inside. They stamp our paperwork for the importing the truck. We drive it down, park it in a lot, have somebody that's driving a chase vehicle. So somebody else just drove over in another pickup truck. We all get in, we drive back, and we do it again.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
Sounds like
it,
a fun job.
it's pretty easy. I've been the chase driver a couple of times, and one time, I just went down. I was waiting 2 hours for the other drivers to get through customs, and I
Oh,
was just
wow.
reading my book. So
It's a good thing you love to read, right?
it is. I have my little Kindle with me, and yeah, so it's pretty easy work.
but
But
but now with the borders closed.
yeah, well, we were still driving. Even in early March, they were telling people to stay home. If But the borders were not closed. They were just recommending people not travel at that point. So it was really good. If I when I was in the chase vehicle, there was just maybe two or three cars in front of me, so it wasn't like half an hour away where you can normally get. So it was pretty quick getting back and forth across the border. But then around the middle of March, they did. They weren't asking people that were traveling by car, because if you're in a car, you're pretty much self isolating anyway.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
But about into March, then they were now saying people that were coming across at the land crossing would have to quarantine for 2 weeks. So there's
Oh,
not much
wow.
point. And
Yeah.
and at that point, they were also saying non-essential traffic is going to be closed to non-essential traffic,
Hmm.
but they don't define what essential or non-essential is. But the borders, the land crossings right now are closed until May 20th, and at that time it'll be reevaluated. Now,
Okay.
Trump wants to open up the borders again. The problem is Canada. So
Mm.
hopefully we'll get the borders open, and that they won't quarantine people, because
Yeah.
a lot of people here, they drive down to Bellingham, which is about 30 miles, or Seattle, that's about 100 miles, or any of the little cities in between where there's like all
Yeah.
kinds of shopping malls. So people go down, they'll shop at Walmart or Costco or whatever.
Yeah.
So I don't see what the difference is with somebody that just goes down for a couple hours and shops at Walmart 30 miles away, as opposed
Yeah.
to shopping at Walmart that's 5 miles away in Surrey.
I know. I
It,
think that, everybody's just trying to just piece together some sort of plan. Like nobody really knows. It hit everybody kind of like a truck, really.
yeah,
And so they're just making it up as they go along.
yeah.
At least that's what I think. How's
What's
the lockdown there?
Well, the lock there really is no lockdown in British Columbia. Um, they have closed casinos, hairdressing salons, and other personal services like massages and facials and stuff, and gyms and yoga studios, that sort of thing. They're all closed. Where I live in Surrey, they've also closed like the public swimming pools. The city also has like a rec centers, so they're all closed. But shops are open. So
Really? And restaurants too?
restaurants are only open for takeout. So if your restaurant
Okay.
offers takeout service, so people can come in, or else the restaurant will deliver. So those are all open, and shops are all open, except for shops that decided to close down. Voluntarily close down, as long as they can maintain social distancing. That
Yeah.
then shops were not, retailers were not ordered to be closed, but a lot of them just decided to do so. Yeah. And we can go out. We can walk. We parks, the beaches are open. In White Rock, White Rock has a pier, and so quite a big
Uh-huh.
tourist attraction to walk along the promenade, the beach in White Rock, and then walk out to the end of the pier where there's a breakwater and there's sailboats. Now they did close the pier about 2 months ago because people weren't doing social distancing, so they put fencing around so you
Yeah.
can't walk there. But aside
And
from that, it's almost pretty much business as usual, except they are asking people to stay home. But
yeah.
they are lifting some of the guidelines. Like next weekend is our Victoria Day, the Queen's
Yeah.
birthday. That's
Uh-huh.
celebrated on the third Monday in May. So that's
Yeah.
next weekend. And on Tuesday, they're allowing uh, hairdressers and to reopen if they can maintain. They have to show what they're going to do. Like I think the hairdressers have to wear masks and gloves.
Yeah.
Be pretty tough for a customer to wear a face can get a facial or anything done.
Exactly. Yeah,
So
it's very strange. Like here,
yeah,
we actually didn't move on to the next phase of the um confinement stages or whatever the new normal they were calling it. And Valencia was one of the regions that didn't make it to the next one. So our allowances are still just the 1 hour a day that we've got. So
yeah.
hearing somebody talk about all this freedom is like, wow, it feels like a whole different world altogether.
Well,
It's
well,
amazing.
well, I live on 10 acres, and
Oh,
but my horse does not live here. But so I've got lots of room to walk my dogs here, even if I had to stay at home. And then where I keep my horse, it's on 40 acres. So I certainly have a large pasture and everything. I can walk around there, and yeah. So yeah. But in Spain, there's a high death toll in Spain, and
yes.
and I'm wondering, when I lived in Spain, there were a lot of smokers. Like almost every
Yeah.
adult smoked. Is it still the same?
Oh,
Is there
yeah.
still a lot of?
Yes, they still smoke a lot, but I think, the majority, the biggest problem why there's such a high fatality rate is because there's such a the average age of the Spaniard is like really high. I mean, they live to be like 90s, 100, just like in Italy, they live forever. So, I
I guess
mean,
it's
they were bound to be higher. At least that's what
yeah.
I think.
Well,
So,
here they're talking about smokers. Smokers have a higher fatality rate for the COVID-19 than non-smokers,
yeah,
and the doc.
I mean, but that's true for just about every disease, really. I don't
Yeah,
think that has as much of a. I think it's natural other causes because
yeah,
they're old. They've got hypertension, heart disease, lung
yeah,
disease. I mean, everything. And in their world, they're used to just walking daily and doing their own routine, and all of a sudden, they can get all this infections from everybody, their grandkids, their kids. We're just
yeah.
walking around, and it's a
Because
tough
it's
life.
it's a very family-oriented society. That's one thing I
Yeah.
noticed. So,
So it's been really tough on them trying to separate because now, as it is in Valencia, as of tomorrow, in a lot of the other parts of Spain, you can go and see family, which you weren't allowed to before. You had to stay in your own house. But now that you can go and see family, it's going to be interesting what's going to happen, because you know how the double kiss, it's it's the whole
Yeah.
thing with family and
Yeah.
closeness. Let's just
Yeah.
hope that we don't slide backwards. So
Well, you
it's
can.
going to be,
Yeah, it's tough because here you can visit family. They'll say,
yeah,
maybe visit out in the driveway or the front yard and stay you're 6 feet apart. So, that's a tough thing because a lot of grandparents want to hug the grandkids, and
of
even
course.
where I live, the my landlords have they I live in a second house on this property, but my landlords have
Mhm.
custody of their two granddaughters who are about 10 and 7. So the little girls live here, so they must be having a lot better than their friends and stuff that maybe live in condos or townhouses and
Yeah,
places where they don't have a lot of room to run around. So
exactly. Which is the same here. Most people live in the city. And so you're in an apartment. And, I was reading an article yesterday, and they were talking about how, this virus has really made the Spanish government realize that people don't have enough light in their apartment, because, everybody's been cooped up for 6 to 8 weeks. And a lot of people, the apartments don't have windows that look out to the street. So they turn inward. So there's no light at all. They're very
yeah,
small rooms, like you described. So, they're still like that. So it's
yeah,
been kind of really hard on a lot of people. So the
yeah,
first day that we were allowed out, a lot of people went crazy, and they were just, but now it's a little bit better. But, we'll see what the future brings. It's
yeah.
been it's been really interesting. We're living in interesting times, and what can
Well,
we do?
in BC, they're planning to get the schools back in later this month, but
Oh, wow.
it'll be voluntary if the parents don't want their kids if they're not if they still are concerned and don't want their kids to go back to school, then they don't have to. But they're also talking about it's going to be maybe a longer day.
Yeah.
I mean, a longer day for the teachers maybe, but the kids, it'll be shifts. So there might be
Yeah.
2 or 3 different sessions throughout the day that the kids would attend. So,
Yes, and that's going to be the one thing that they agreed on here, is like the schools are not going back till September, because they're like, we can't keep the classes clean between, the actual rooms clean. We can't do this. They can't agree on anything. So, but I'm really interested to know, like, are they going to pass on everybody to the next grade? Because like Fede's sister, her kids have been asking the same thing. Like, when we go back to school, are we going to be like in the same class? We have to repeat it, or do we get to move on to the next class? And I'm like, I don't know.
well, in
But
the news here, it did say like the kids were out in spring break, and then that was just about the same time that they decided to do the um, they were going to close down the schools. So it just kind of worked out that the kids in British Columbia were on spring break. But they did
yes,
announce then that all grade 12 students would pass, which would
yeah,
be great news if you weren't doing so well in your studies up
exactly.
until that
I know.
point.
So I can get a free pass, so to speak.
Yeah. So they did say all grade 12 students were going to graduate. So good, like I say. But
Now,
and
are you? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
no, I was just saying, as for the other grades, I just assume they're all just going to automatically move on in
Yeah,
September to the next grade up.
I'm pretty sure that's what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Now, let me finish up by asking you what you think about what's going to happen, like when the borders open, like between the US and Canada, for instance. Are you hoping to go back to work for the same company?
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah, yeah.
how?
It was a really good fit for me, and as long as my company is able to hang in there financially, I was just at the lot about 2 weeks ago because I got called in to move some trucks, 3 trucks over to a dealer for some work,
Mhm.
and there was about 40 trucks there. So
Okay,
there's a lot of trucks that
so
need to go south, and they're just sitting here. So
I'm waiting. Okay, that's
they
cool.
well, well, they did say that they hired a professional hauler, one of those big semi trucks that can carry about 6 or 7 vehicles on a trailer behind it,
Yes.
and so they said they had to hire one of those guys to come up from Washington or wherever. So when the trucks when we drive the trucks down to the lot in Washington, now a
Mhm.
professional hauler picks them up from there and takes them to Arizona or wherever. But apparently, Americans really want to buy used Albertan pickup trucks. But I
Oh,
was also going to mention, before we forget, that Canada really seems to be doing really well for financially helping out its citizens, because I'm on something called the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, and everyone who's lost their job due to COVID-19 can apply, and they get $2,000 a month. Now,
no way.
yeah, 2,000 a month, and for 4 months. They've got the plan open for 4 months, but then they'll relook at it after 4 months. But you can also, if your hours have been slashed, as long
Hmm.
as you haven't made over $1,000, if you're under $1,000 in pay that month, you can still get the $2,000. You just have to go in every month and reapply and say that yes, you're still out of work, or you didn't make more than 1,000 that month.
That's
So,
fantastic.
when you think of the United States gave everybody a $1,200 stimulus check, and that's a one-time thing.
Yeah, I know that they're talking about doing, a CARE Act kind of thing where they would give 2,000 a month. I don't think it's going to pass, but at
Yeah.
least they're talking about it.
Well,
But I
they
can't
must
believe that
they must have
Canada
got
actually did
motivated.
it.
Well, Canada went on it pretty good, and so it was pretty quick, and then but in British Columbia has offered a time thing for $1,000 for people that become unemployed. And they in the first 44 they opened up that program a week ago Friday, and
Hmm.
they had 16,000 applicants in the first 45
Whoa.
minutes. And then
Wow.
on Wednesday they announced that 400,000 people had applied, so that's like 10% of the province's population. I have not yet applied, but I'm eligible for that.
Wow.
So that's just kind of another
Fantastic.
nice little thing. But
Yeah.
and then I was able to take advantage of one other program offered by the province for people that have lost their jobs. See, as soon as if you qualified for the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, you're pretty much automatically in line for any other assistance that comes up. And
Oh,
the
wow.
the province of BC was offering $300 a month rental assistance.
Okay.
So for people that rent,
Yeah.
so it is 300 if you're single, 100 if you're a couple or a family. In the Vancouver area, where rentals house it's the highest most housing market in Canada, and rentals are really really high. So
Hmm.
it doesn't really help that much, but it helps a bit. So
Yeah.
I was also able to apply for that. It was a two-part process. I applied, and then I had to give my landlord's email, and then the landlord had to send in a copy of their check to get the money deposited directly into their account. So
Oh,
that all went pretty quickly. So I am financially, I'm okay so far.
wow. That's incredible. I mean, every little bit helps. And to have all these avenues, and anybody who's listening out there who lives in Canada, and can take advantage of any of these programs, make sure you do it because
Yeah,
really nobody knows how long this is going to last. Nobody, you're living off savings or whatnot. You can always use the help. You can't, you can't
exactly.
say, you can't turn your nose up at it.
Yeah, and the government really isn't there to help us all that much anyway. But now all of a sudden, bam, they're there. And
Yeah,
so yeah, I definitely I needed to take advantage of that, and to help me out so I don't have to dip into my emergency savings or anything, or
of course.
use my credit card. And I'm in better shape than a lot of people. I no longer have a house, so I'm not worrying about a mortgage. I don't
Mhm.
have any loans. I don't have any credit card debt. So, and I feel really bad for the people that are not in such a good position. And it's not just in Canada; it's everywhere. It's Americans.
Exactly.
There's
It's everywhere.
a lot of sad stories in the states. There's casinos that are shut down
Yeah.
in Nevada and New Jersey are hit hard. There was
Mhm.
a I saw something in the news about a food bank in New Jersey that was just for workers at this one casino, and they were
Wow.
lined up for 3 miles in their cars.
Today
And
I was reading a blog post about that, and I saw some more pictures from all around the country, and I'm just stunned. And I'm like, it's it looks like a third world country in a first world. It's just
Yeah.
absolutely amazing how devastating this is. We've got 30% unemployment rate, and I'm sure it's pretty high. It's You said 10% of the population filed for unemployment benefits. I mean, this is devastating, and it's going to be
Yeah.
like this for a while.
Yeah.
So you got to any help you can get, you got to take it.
Right.
I remember one of the last blog posts you had written was about having an emergency fund, and I read, the shoulda, coulda, woulda. I was like, it's
Yeah.
not time to be pointing fingers,
It
you know.
isn't, and I hate reading these posts, like these bloggers, and they're married. They make $10,000 a month.
Yeah.
You know, they have they paid off their mortgage. They have $1 million in net worth, and
Mhm.
telling, and sure enough, their heart's in the right place. But a lot of people, like myself, can't relate to people that make that much money and
Yeah.
have no debt and have $1 million in investments. It's just, that's
and
not the
and say
reality.
you should have invested your money, you
Yeah.
should have done this, so you should have.
Yeah.
Now you would be sitting pretty like I am, and
Yeah. That's right. Sitting pretty like me.
yeah, exactly. Like, life just it doesn't happen that way. And
Yeah.
when you think about big companies, big corporations who, are filing for benefits and filing for bailouts, and they tell everybody to like make sure you have an emergency fund, and for tough times. And yet it's like 1 week after everything collapses, and they're saying, we can't pay the rent, like Cheesecake Factory. The parent company is like, we can't pay the rent. This was like 1 or 2 weeks after the whole thing. And
Yeah.
it's just like, I'm sorry, and you're telling everybody that they should have all this money to take
Uh,
when you live paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that's sad reality for most people, and that's why
yeah.
I try to kind of relate to those people, because that's my life, living paycheck to paycheck. I did get a small inheritance when my parents died, and I bought a new Canon camera. I didn't go out and buy stuff. I just I put it into investments, and
Mhm.
just savings, and and I don't touch it.
Yeah.
So whether or not it's there or not, I don't. It's nothing that I use. I still make do with what I can scrape together myself.
That's great. Yeah,
Yeah,
so definitely anybody listening to this, I hope you've learned of channels that you can access if you need to get some financial help. And
yeah,
check out Cheryl's website called thelifestyledigs.com, and find information on pretty much everything, whether it's horses, her baking skills, her her book reading, her
yeah,
recommendations on pretty much everything, emergency funding, and how to go about it. I mean, it's
yeah,
a true well-rounded lifestyle blog. So
yeah.
Cheryl,
Oh,
thank you so much for being on here today. It was fun talking to you.
yeah. Well, thanks so much for having me, Kim. Kim, thanks for saying such nice things about my blog and my writing,
Well, it's
and
true.
and I really, I envy you that you are in Spain. It was, kind of my life dream when I was younger, to live in Spain, and there you are, living my dream.
Okay, I'll enjoy it for you then.
Okay.
Thanks again, Cheryl.
No,
Oh,
thank you so much.
it was lovely.
Yeah,
Thank you,
enjoy it.
everyone, for joining me on this episode. You can find the Next Bite of Life podcast on any of your favorite platforms like Spotify, iTunes, and Stitcher. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. And remember, we would love to have reviews or tell us how we can improve on the show. Thanks again, and we'll see you the next time.